Hello guys, how are you all? Welcome back to my channel. So, today we are gonna see, what if Izuku had sacred gear, part 1. Subscribe if you enjoy the video, let's begin the story. Prologue. In the early days of humanity, many entities known as gods roamed the land, gathering followers, crafting weapons and artifacts, mixing with humanity, and siring children or demigods. However, this relatively turbulent and interpantheon scuffling was brought to an end as angels fell and descended, devils rose, and before all too long, Earth was caught in a blistering war of three factions: angels, the fallen, and devils with the other pantheons, and humanity caught in the middle. At some point God, the white god or god of the Bible, used his considerable power to create a system embedded in the core of humanity, which became known as the Sacred Gear system. Sacred gears were also known as artifacts of God, however, due to the enactment of this system, meant that the pantheons that had existed on Earth had their artifacts become sacred gears. All of these artifacts fell under the umbrella term of sacred gear, but under that term all of these individual sacred gears were divided into further categories. For the pantheons before God of the Bible garnered the term of ancient gears, and artifacts created to oppose sacred gears were known as anti-gears. This was the first obvious attempt to differentiate the sacred gears in the sacred gear system. Sacred gears were then roughly separated into groups based purely on their abilities. The categories were Long-Ina sacred gears, artificial, state change, creation, defensive, attribute, barrier, time-space, independence, and draconic. These were the main known rough categories of sacred gears. Long-Ina sacred gears are artifacts that were either made or contained entities with enough power to kill gods. An example would be the true Long-Inus, also known as the Spear of Destiny. Others would be the boosted gear and divine dividing. Artificial gears are, as they say, on the tin made by gifted or just sheer determined people, desperate to tip the scales or have fun. These were also classified as anti-gears, weapons that were on par or even stronger than some of the normal gears. State change gears are gears that change the state of its wielder, typically by enhancing them to unfathomable levels or in one case, diminishing their opponents. The most common ones would be the boosted gear and the divine dividing. Creation gears are amongst the more common of sacred gears, with multiple records detailing one or more people wielding one or in some cases two of these gears. No confirmed links between multiple gears appearing wielders. The most common of these would be sword birth and blade blacksmith, two gears that were exceptionally similar, but yet completely different at the same time. Defensive gears are gears that typically reflect attacks, with the best one known as Mirror of Recollection, or in the hands of the previous wielder Mirror Alice. Barrier gears are gears that have the ability to trap, seal, bind, and hold opponents and abilities. They also gathered the umbrella term of dimensional shifting gears. Attribute gears typically had artifacts with elemental links, with the strongest being the Zenith Tempest or the Prison of Bright Heavenly Thunder. Time-space gears are easily the most obscure and the second most dangerous type, as the slightest mismanagement spelt massive collateral damage, with Gravity Jail and the Forbidden Baylor View as the two known ones. Eyesight was crucial for these to work effectively. Independent gears are gears that have taken on animalistic traits and visages, with Canis Lycaon and Regulus Nemia being the most known. One being the Dog of Death and the other the Lion King Battle Axe. Coincidentally, they made up a solid 3 to 4 of the list of Long-Inus. The last class, the Draconic gears, were perhaps the most sought after sacred gears. They held dragons, who would not want a minion who had a planet-sized, fire-breathing, and flying engine of destruction under their command. Furthermore, dragons had their own hierarchy of the strongest dragons in the world. The strongest being Great Red, Apocalypse Dragon, which lived in a separate reality. The next two were Ophis and Lilith, the mother-daughter Ouroboros dragon duo. The next two were the Heavenly Dragon Emperors of White and Red, or the Heavenly White Supremacy Dragon Emperor, Albion, and the Heavenly Red Domination Dragon Emperor, Drake, both of whom had been locked in battle for millennia and were now sealed in the Divine Dividing and Boosted Gear respectively. Then below them, in no clear order of the strongest, but the defined weakest, was Vritra, the Black Prison Dragon King, or Vritra, the Four-Gear King, and the others being Tiamat, Yulong, Midgardsormr, and Fafnir, all jostling about for the strongest dragon kings. There were other dragons, but they tended to not appear that often or last that long if and when they showed up. It wasn't until the early 2000s and then 2010s that the Cold War that had settled in since at least to humanity 1100 BC. What happened between then and 2009 to 2010 is and will be inconsequential. However, everything came crashing down after the 4 archangels of heaven and their brave saints, the elite of the fallen legions, and the strongest 10 peerages, servants, and their devil kings, leaders, were sealed off in an isolated dimension to deal with the beast Trahixas 666. No one was sure what happened, but the only thing that was confirmed to have happened was the complete disappearance of all the supernatural powers. That was until the year 2090. Time jump. In the year 2090, a child was born. No real consequence, as children were born every day. The only difference was this child was emitting light. After that, reports of other people with powers appeared across the world. No one knew what was causing this emergence of quirks. Soon enough the supernatural became totally normal. Dreams are a reality. Within 3 generations 80% of the world had a quirk. Time jump 2184. I'm sorry Mrs. Midoriya, it looks like your son is destined to not have a quirk, said the doctor. Izuku watched as his mother's eyes glazed up. Suddenly his right arm flared and momentarily turned crimson red. Soon child, we will speak soon, hero, we can do that. Izuku twitched and suddenly found himself being led out of the hospital. After that Izuku's life, whilst not the best, all things considered, like an absentee father, quirkless, and his mother's almost cotton wool-like mothering, and occasional passing out waterworks for tears, at school before it became apparent that he did not have a quirk, everything spiraled quickly. When it got out that Izuku was quirkless, Inko watched in horror as Izuku came home occasionally from school with bruises and cuts. She also saw the rift that gradually appeared between Bakugo Katsuki and her own son. It wasn't until one of the required parent-child events when she saw 3 children surrounding her son and pushing him around. What's wrong, quirkless, can't fight back. This is fun. No wonder Bakugo likes shoving him around. Izuku wanted to break down in tears. Why couldn't they accept that he wanted to be a hero? Kid, not everyone is born equal, but you can make them equal. Izuku stopped moving, causing one of the boys to falter. Inko watched as her son's arm glowed red and Izuku shoved one of his bullies back. The boy stumbled further than he was meant to, however Katsuki heralded his arrival with a series of rapid-fire explosions. He had arrived with his mother, both mothers were surprised to see Katsuki drive off the bullies and turn on Izuku. The adults did not need to hear what was said, only that Katsuki turned away and a loud pop reverberated near Izuku's face. After the student evening, Inko made Izuku his favorite meal of katsudon and then on the laptop began looking for self-defense locations nearby, and after Izuku had gone to bed, Inko headed to her room and at the back of her drawer of undergarments, a small box resided. Inko stopped, her hand resting on the box. It brought back memories of much worse and much better times. Enji, Aizawa, Toshinori, I had hoped that my son being quirkless would deter him from being a hero. Damn the Toshinori and your American-style heroics, damn you Enji for your bull-headed determination to become number 1. And you Aizawa, I thought Namuri was keeping you off the streets at night much like the former stealth hero. Batman. Inko sighed and shut the drawer. Unless Hisashi reappeared in her life, then she would keep Enji, Toshinori and the other friends and acquaintances that she had made in the dark. However, it was because of Toshinori who found out about Hisashi and told her that he would help her because that's what friends do. Inko grinned to herself. Her oldest friend had an idol for her son. 5 more minutes and then I'll finish for the night. The next day, Inko picked Izuku up and, following the GPS on her phone, found a dojo of potential interest. In Mandarin and Japanese, it clearly read Fierce Fighting Buddha Dojo. The Midoriya family entered and found that in the dimly lit dojo, a small man armed with a staff was beating down on a young kid with a tail for a quirk. The duo sprung apart and the adult headed over. Welcome to the Fierce Fighting Buddha Dojo. Izuku looked over the room with the curiosity of a kitten. My name is Son Goku, I run this facility, and you are? Midoriya. Inko, I'm here to sign my son up for your trial lessons. Sun Wukong nodded. Your boy, he's quirkless, isn't he? There was a pause and a nod. This is going to sound strange, but please Lady Midoriya, answer me this. Have you seen anything you would class as weird or unexplainable due to the fact that your son hasn't got a quirk? Earlier today 3 children were bullying him and momentarily his arm changed to a different color. A shade of red. Sun Wukong kept his features composed. Of all of you to return, I was not expecting you. Why Drake Gotch. Sun Wukong looked at the child and momentarily, memories of his ancestor flooded into his brain as he looked upon the newest Red Dragon Emperor. You will only need to pay for the trial sessions, after that I'll train him alongside my nephew Ajiro. But this small meeting between Inko and Sun, along with a friendly interaction and beginning between Ajiro and Izuku, the green-haired red dragon incarnate's life would change. 5 years on, Izuku dodged a tail-supported mule kick and retaliated with a set of kicks that climaxed with a falling axe kick that was designed to break or crack bones. Ajiro smirked and moved out of the way, but momentarily forgot that whilst Izuku favored his shoot-style or kick-style fighting, he had a small arsenal of more punches and elbow strikes, but there were elements of grappling and restraining. Tornado whip. Ajiro shouted as he launched himself airborne. Izuku managed to dodge the head-height heel kick and shoulder punch, however the tail took his feet out. Izuku managed to flip into a handstand when it happened. Izuku's right hand turned crimson and the top of his hand revealed a greenish gem-boosted gear. Ajiro starred as Izuku's hand was encased in the gauntlet. Surprise. Welsh Dragon. Second Liberation. The gauntlet, and Izuku shouted, and Ejiro watched transfixed as the gauntlet extended and became less like a human hand encased in medieval armor, but rather a dragon arm. This one was definitely a Western dragon by the look of things. That's it, whippersnappers. Break it up now. Goku said as he stepped forwards. The two fighters jumped apart and bowed. Izuku, that's your quirk? Ejiro asked. Officially. Need to work out what it does though. Sun snorted. It's a unique quirk, at least according to my travels and research, not seen in a while. This particular one increases power. Ejiro looked at the gauntlet with surprise. That increases Izuku's power. How much by, how long for? Don't know, kiddo. All I know is that this particular quirk is a powerful one. Midoriya, don't you have school tomorrow? Anyway, your grading is tomorrow. Izuku nodded after bowing to his friend and sensei departed. It's finally good to be awake and able to manifest a partner. It's time for a long overdue dialogue. I'm Drake, the Red Dragon Emperor, and I am not a quirk. I've been bound to you since you were born. You are me, as much as I am you. Everything clear? Clear, Drake. I thought there was going more of a talk, more waterworks, and you murmuring like a broken faucet about you not being worthy. No chance, partner. Too many variations of this meeting have been recorded. Yes, multiverse theory is a thing, and it is a colossal bitch anyway. You want to be a hero, with my power and infinite wisdom you'll be able to do just that. Just don't develop a desire to become a harem king. Izuku almost walked into a lampist and he looked at the gauntlet. Okay, I have a dragon quirk inside of me. It is sentient. Multiverse theory is real and no harm. As for the leaky faucet, touche. Why am I not freaking out right now? You will. You're currently suffering from delayed shock. You might want to get home before you freak out. For the record, I am not a quirk. Another time skip just before Texas Smash and rescuing Bakugo. Izuku had managed to keep the manifestation of a quirk hidden. The only people who knew were Inko, Son Goku Sensei, and Ejiro Mashirao, who was possibly the closest person Izuku had to a best friend. Granted, they met up occasionally on the weekend, but most of the time they spared at the dojo. Goku Sensei was being extremely tight-lipped about Drake, and Drake similarly. Remind us, why are we helping this antagonistic brat? I just call them, as I see them, as partners. Izuku sighed because, Bakumum, and my mom will get on my case. Have no desire to ruin their friendship because we can't get along. Everything that happened next was well documented. All Might appeared, a bag of shopping in one hand, and with the other effortlessly peeled the sludge villain off the two trapped middle schoolers. Never fear, good people, because I am here. The boys watched as All Might effortlessly defeated the villain and handed it off to Death Arms. Atsuki snarled at Izuku and stormed off, his pride severely damaged. Izuku made himself scarce, but not before receiving a lecture from Mount Lady, Kamui Woods, and Death Arms about reckless elf-endangerment. That evening, Izuku looked at the skeletal form of All Might. You want to give me your quirk? One that has been improved by 7 other people. That is correct, young Midoriya. This sounds like your lucky break, kid. What did I think? You said you were quirkless. We are. I predate quirks by several millennia. I am Drake. My partner, and I will gladly take you up on your offer. All Might. When do we begin? Rumbled Drake. Tomorrow, at dawn, Dagaba Municipal Beach. Around the time Drake first appears when Izuku is 4, Shoda Aizawa moved swiftly and stealthily across the rooftops of the old warehouse next to the waterfront. Next to him were 2 people. One was a gigantic hulk of a man clad with a half balaclava form-fitting t-shirt and jeans with a heavy knee-length duster and metal toe-capped boots. The other was a blonde boy dressed in a high school blouse, skirt, and stockings. The uncommon thing out of the 3 of them, the hulk of a man could not see the other. Thanks for granting me your assistance, Eraser. It is the most logical thing to do, Knuckle Duster, although, once this job is through and this band of drug addicts are behind bars, I am going to be taking you down, as well. Aizawa replied. I find it hard to believe, Shoda. Eraser had stopped, he lifted his goggles and looked at his partner. The Hulk sighed and lifted his balaclava. Former high-speed hero. O'clock. I remember you, Shoda Aizawa, from your effort or lack of effort at the UA festival or showcase. I offered you an internship and then you apprenticed under me for a while just out of UA when you came 4th overall. Aizawa looked at the former hero and paused. True, you also taught me to do the right thing. The clock chuckled. I did indeed. But here you are, working alongside a vigilante. I'm an underground hero. We're meant to walk the lines. Anyway, I have a more personal reason for dealing with these particular villains. Although that is not an accurate term for them. The clock snorted. Idiots and lawbreakers. Why? You've not really expressed any interest in street gangs before. They happen to be within what I call an inappropriate radius of a friend's son's school. Aizawa replied grudgingly. He had lost proper contact with Yuzuki no Midoriya Inko, as she was now called, a few years ago. Then he had bumped into her at the pharmacist with her son when he had been picking up his prescription of eye drops when they bumped into each other. Contact had been resumed, but it was infrequent, but the infrequencies made the logical and stoic young hero grin. Then he had been called in the middle of the night by Kayama to hear a sobbing Inko. It had turned out that her new husband Midoriya Hisashi, who was actually the infamous villain Inferno, had struck her. It didn't help that he was a villain and former UA student as well. Aizawa, snap out of it. A clock said. My apologies. That was illogical. Inferno. You were talking about a friend and her son, then you trailed off. Anyway, the vans arrived and it looks like a delivery and resupply. Aizawa nodded, then the blonde child said, why won't you use the gift I've given to you? I've received nothing from you, aside from migraines. The boy quickly shied away, sighed, but remained. You already know how to use it. You just need to go beyond. Go plus ultra, as your school would say. Just a screaming child. Surely you have better things to do than, I can't. Not until you've accepted me and my gift. The child you're referring to, Midoriya Izuku. He's the new Wide Drake Gotch, Red Dragon Emperor of Domination. He's going to need you to help control his power. Aizawa's side Inko's kid has some all-powerful quirk. He's not a quirk. My power is not a quirk. We predate quirks. That's a story for another time. Now are you going to accept it? My power. What is it? The Forbidden Baylor view. It complements your ocular quirk quite nicely. Aizawa nodded. The clock, now going by the name Knuckledister, watched curiously as his former student suddenly began to talk to himself. It finished with the underground hero nodding. When Knuckledister saw it, Aizawa seemed to move with even more grace and stealth than before. They snuck up to the skylight and with a monkey wrench and a door stop, opened the skylight and the pair dropped inside. They landed behind a patrol. Unfortunately, Knuckledister landed with a heavier thumb causing them to turn around. Shit. One pulled a handgun and the other clapped his hands and lightning began to crackle. Aizawa looked in their direction, his goggles down, and his hair began to flare up. One eye glowing red and the other yellow. To Aizawa, the world turned a monochrome gray and he rushed forwards. The lightning scum's quirk deactivated the moment Aizawa looked at him and the other seemed to have stopped what he was doing. Knuckleduster, the vigilante and hero had landed with a thump and ringing of steel on metal. Then he saw Aizawa's hair stand up and then one moment he was next to the former hero and suddenly his capture cord scarf had the lightning villain. He himself was going for his shotgun but stopped when Aizawa neatly incapacitated the two thugs. I thought your quirk was erasure. Aizawa snorted, this I'm not sure about. Normal. The taking down of the thugs in the warehouse had been an arduous task, mainly due to what Eraserhead would learn would have been due to the drug known as Trigger. When Eraserhead's contact with the police arrived on the scene with armed police and the drug squad along with 3 of Japan's top 10 heroes with the likes of the Fiber Hero, Best Jeanist, Ninja Hero, Edgeshot, and the latest hero to grace the top 10 the Dragoon Hero, Ryukyu. Eraserhead had made sure Knuckleduster was safely out of the building and away as the licensed heroes and police raided the facility. Despite being out of the game, Eraserhead had a good hunch that the former pro hero could comfortably take any 2 of the current pros, with the exception of All Might and Endeavor. Eraserhead, I know you're here. Namuski, Aizawa's police contact called, and true enough the underground hero appeared carrying one more. This one was interesting. Mutant and emitter. Mutant has physiology akin to a rhino. His quirk is something to do with kinetic energy, probably using his footsteps to power his strength up. The 3 pro heroes looked at him. That would take someone with a speed type quirk to deal with. My quirk has no effect on mutant heroes. But Emitter's different story. Erased his quirk, he's just a thug with physiology of a rhino. Restraining cord at ankle height, captured. Eraserhead, a word. Namuski stated as the pair walked out onto the waterfront. Yes. Are you covering for someone? I know you operate as an underground hero, granting you some form of leeway when it comes to vigilantism. I'm risking my neck, man. That rhino guy has a bruise on his head coming from a guy that has at least half a foot on you and outweighs you as well. Didn't get his name or a look at his face. But 2 things I do know are that he is incredibly strong and has at least 1 firearm and knows how to use it. Furthermore, off the record he knows me. The police captain nodded. I'll keep that in mind. You're free to go. Time skipped to just before season 1. Aizawa sighed as he took his seat. Another year, another group of hopefuls. Same rules principle. In the staff briefing room was a rectangular table with a white tanuki-esque creature at the head. This was Mr. Principal or Principal Nezu. Down the left-hand side of him were Yagi Toshinori Aka All Might, the new heroics teacher, Shota Aizawa Aka Racerhead, either a science or potential homeroom teacher, next to him a blonde-haired slender hero with an omnidirectional speaker next to his vocal cords. This is Yamada Hisashi Aka present Mike, the English teacher, next to him sat the modern literature professor Ishiyama Ken Aka Cementus, made out of cement and the potential, but of Minecraft jokes, and the final teacher the curvaceous and flirty modern hero art history teacher, Heiama Namuri Aka Midnight. It also does not help that she single-handedly implemented costume regulations. On the right-hand side were Snipe, 3 a homeroom teacher and geography teacher, ectoplasm, mathematics teacher, Majima Higari, excavation hero, power loader department of support leader and technology teacher, and finally a well-built silver-haired man Kansas Ekijiro Aka blood hero, Lad King a homeroom teacher. These were the main teachers at UA High, however they were far from the other pro heroes that were part of the staff. They had a recovery girl in the infirmary, lunch rush in the cafeteria, Hound Dog as a guidance counselor, and 13 as a search and rescue module leader. As usual. But I must ask Aizawa, why are you so harsh on the newcomers? Vlad has passed more classes than yourself. Midnight asked. How I teach and how Vlad teaches are not necessarily logical for me to do so. For one, how we view heroes is completely different. He sees it as people with a desire to do the right thing. For me, a desire is not enough, and, as a result, it is illogical for me to take pupils on because of a desire. They need a desire, make no mistake, but they must show and demonstrate it always and consistently, and they must always go beyond plus ultra. Anything less is illogical and leads to early retirement or worse. Our job is now one of the most dangerous in the world. Just taking students on like Vlad does, in my opinion, is liable to get them killed. Is that it? Cementus asked curiously. For now, I assume that it is the same procedure for the heroics course. Seeing power loader nod. Wonderful, another illogical stereotype given to us due to the public. It looks like I will be looking at general course and support to swap any I deem fit. Why do you like those from the support and general courses? Asked Snipe curiously. I mean, around the sports festival you're always looking at the scores and quirks. Because Snipe, my quirk is useful for heroics, but ill-matched when it comes to the traditional heroic course entrance exam. It was no surprise that Aizawa had himself been on the general heroics course before the high-speed hero. A clock had sponsored Aizawa into the heroics course. A clock had given Aizawa much of the tools and gave Aizawa a foundation for his rather blunt but logical approach for heroism. It may seem cold and abrupt, but it worked. The few that Aizawa had taught became some of the best heroes. As the staff meeting ended, Present Mick and Midnight quickly cornered Aizawa. Due to their routines, as both staff and pro heroes, it was rather easy to avoid one another. Aizawa looked, and still after 10 years of accepting his upgrade to his quirk, the previous wielder was still hanging around. Thankfully, the boy had learned to keep his distance from the underground hero. Aizawa-kun, wait a moment. The erasing hero looked at them, and a thin smile crossed his lips as he pulled out a juice carton. Hisashi, Namuri. It's been a while. It has. You, okay. Trust Hisashi to be the bleeding heart of the 3 of them. My quirk's mutated. That stunned the radio hero and rated R hero. Aizawa, you're 31. How can your quirk mutate? Namuri finished in a whisper. Even in the halls of UA rumors could spread. Let's head to the obstacle course. We're probably going to need power loader and his tech. Obstacle course training ground Delta. You need my tech, why exactly? Power loader asked curiously. I need you to time me going through the obstacle course to get an accurate reading on my vitals, because well you'll see. Aizawa said nonchalantly as he dropped his dry eye ointment. True enough, it took Aizawa 5 goes, but eventually everyone agreed. The Erasure hero's quirk had changed, but then Nezu spoke. Eraserhead, from the recordings of your runs, and from what I've witnessed, I think I have an understanding of what has happened. I know what is happening, and have been taking note of it. Everyone collectively thought there was a reason no one tried to outsmart the principal. Your quirk Erasure has indeed mutated, but not as much as you might think. It now has an area effect, I believe. But the rest of it is now up to you to practice and hone it. Izuku end of training. Down on Mustafa Beach, Izuku had, with the help of the boosted gear, managed to clean up the entire beach. Even though Izuku had muscle development due to his martial arts training, which he still continued to do. He was beginning to bulk out as a result of the moving of the debris on the beach. The clock had hit a week before the entrance exam. All Might arrived as Izuku let out a primal yell in triumph. That boy, young Midoriya, yes, you will go far indeed. All Might thought, now there was work to be done. The transfer needed to happen, One for All needed another host. You have done well, the pair of you. Now I need you to eat this hair and the transfer will be complete. Then your next bit of training can begin. Dawn came too early. Izuku had mentioned to his mother that things were going to change. But he had been surprised to find his mother waiting for him in the living room. Where are you going at this time of night? The beach. I kinda have a meeting with Trenwasuling to help Mijitinta. Izuku babbled. The trainer? It's wonderful that you're getting help to get into UA, but last time I checked I was still your guardian. Inko replied, her keys levitating into her hands. Follow the plan, and I shall meet you. Which beach? The Gaba Municipal. Inko nodded, she paused. She knew that beach. She had hung out there in her youth with Hisashi, Toshinori, Enji, and Namuri. She turned your trainer, he wouldn't happen to have rather lanky, sharp features. Or if not a mountain of muscle and permanent shit-eating grin, as Mitsu-chan used to say. Izuku stopped dead, and an emerald appeared in Izuku's right hand. She's got you good. Inko turned Izuku, you're going to want to explain the emerald in your hand. In fact, a lot of explaining needs to be done. Izuku nodded. Let's go. The Gaba Municipal Park. It was just after 2 a.m. when Izuku managed to jog down to the beach. Coincidentally, as Yoshinori had predicted that Izuku would be. Ah, young Midoriya, are you ready? Izuku nodded. All Might Sensei, I want to. Yogi Toshinori, it's been a while. Inko said, getting out of the battered car she used to get to work. Toshinori turned to Midoriya. Inko. He turned to Izuku and started cleaning the beach using the exercises I've written down. Toshinori and Inko. I have a phone. Why didn't you call? Toshinori paled. Would you answer? I mean, what with our past history and then that night happened. Inko stopped. Probably, Kami, I've missed you. With that, Inko wrapped her arms around Toshinori, accidentally brushing against the wound. He winced. Tashi-kun, all for one, I got him. He lifted the shirt revealing the hole at the cost of my stomach and other organs. Inko's eyes widened. I'm so sorry. Toshinori sighed. Don't be. This is all my doing. I'm the one who upped and left, but I am here. And will be for the foreseeable and remaining time that I have left. Inko smiled, eyes watering, but managed to keep the unofficial aqueduct quirk of the Midoriya household under wraps. Now, about the gem in Izuku's arm. Toshinori exhaled through his nose. From what I can tell from both the quirk and young Midoriya himself, it's not really a quirk, but has a quirk-style attribute. But what they are I don't know. But if we watch, we could find out. Izuku, boosted gear. The gauntlet manifested. Ready? Dre grumbled. Izuku nodded, and then across the beach one word was heard: boost. Izuku got to work. Tires were shifted, fridges lifted, washing machines dragged both one- and two-handed. Sofas pressed. Izuku heaved, dragged, shoved, pulled, pressed, and chucked the garbage on the beach onto the old flatbed truck that All Might had hired. On more than one occasion Toshinori conveniently forgot to fill the truck with the gas. This happened more often than not on Friday and Saturdays, meaning Izuku had to push the van at increasing speeds to the tip and then grab petrol cans, fill the van up and then drive back to the beach and repeat the process. His diet had changed too, and eventually he had grown dramatically and had replaced his meager slim figure with muscle. His ability with drag had also increased dramatically. Whereas Izuku, upon activating the gear at the beginning, could only handle 1 to 3 boosts per 10 seconds and not even 2 in what he would call booster mode. Midoriya on the other hand was able to do 3 to 4 boosts regularly and just over 2. That was due to his martial arts training, which kept up in the meantime. The 10 months had flown by. Midoriya had cleaned up to Gaba in just over 7 months, so spent the remaining 2 months and 2 weeks training with Drag and All Might. It was in one of these training sessions that All Might delivered his first major hammer blow to his future successor. Boost. 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 Transfer. Detroit Sma, Izuku yelled as he went for one of All Might's signature moves. Albuquerque Smash. This finisher was a hand thrust instead of a fist akin to the Texas Smash. Izuku found himself motionless in the air as the initial force of wind slammed into him. The vacuum sent him onto the damp sand. Young Midoriya, it All Might began before shifting back into his slender form. Pleases me to no end that you are using my signature moves. But there, I must stop you. Hero worship is fine, but a copycat is dead. Huh? Toshinori sighed. He walked over and grabbed Izuku by the gauntleted hand when energy surged through him. What the? You've been given a boost. One of my abilities, as a quirk aside from boosting my partner every 10 seconds allows me to transfer that energy into others. I was listening to when you told us you were on a limit. This could be a stopgap. All Might stopped. My thanks, young Midoriya and Drag. Where was I? Worship is fine. Copycat's dead. In America, there was a hero known as the Bat Hero. Batman, he wasn't the first superhero, but he was one of the first without a quirk to become a licensed hero anyway. One variation of his sidekick, Wonder Hero. Robin, one ended up getting battered to death with a crowbar by the cackling villain. Joker. Similarly, the Arachnid Hero. Spider-Man, one of his copycats in Britain, ended up getting killed. Izuku's eyes widened. Then, you have me. You have All Might for ideas. My advice. Don't worry about naming things unless you need to. I wouldn't say no to my name being used in an attack. Besides, I have an idea for a technique. You do? Yes. Well, it looks at equipping me with different parts of the body. Izuku nodded. Okay, well, I've been seeing doubles recently. Same gauntlet, but someone else, brown hair, brown eyes, my size maybe slightly bigger, and was yelling Welsh Dragon Second Liberation. Braig was silent, but then he eventually spoke. It started earlier than I thought. I've had many wielders partners and in many different realities. Each reality has a fragment of my true power, remember. Multiverse theory is a bitch. You're so powerful that you don't belong here. What the fuck? Braig chuckled. That's a new one. To be fair, that's the first time I've heard that. Then again, that's the first time I've disclosed just how powerful I am. In essence, the more powerful you are, the less your reality applies to you, but the greater universe still applies. That makes no sense. Think of the universe as a massive teeter-totter always remaining in balance. I boost, my opponent divides, therefore balance. Light, dark, good and evil, Asura and Diva, life and death all have different names, but all true representations of the universe balance. In every reality I exist as a sacred gear, as do the rest, especially my other. Anyway, digression. Lots of realities, lots of fragments of me. When we die, the fragments rejoin me, and then we are reborn again. However, I only truly remember and accept those with the greatest potential. And there have been 6. You're the 7th, Izuku Midoriya. The one you see is possibly my most powerful aspect. His name is Haiduise, the devil king of lust, the twice-born dragon, dragon of dragons, and most of all a good man. Izuku could only nod. I'm not sure how I'm going to be remembered by you for future generations. But I can definitely do my best to be a good man now. This training. You already are partners. You already are. Yes, the technique is called liberation. You manifesting me is the first liberation, but that they began to train. Ajiro Mashirao, uncle, what's happening? He asked as he brought his wind and fire sword up and deflected the staff. Ever since Midoriya started attending here, you've been training me in the way of the sword. Then this. Leaning against the wall of the dojo was a tall, blonde-haired teen with a sword on his waist. Son Goku and Ajiro could see him plainly, but anyone else couldn't. It's because of him. That dumb prick has been dead for too damn long. He's a passover, a hanger-on from the power you've had deep inside you, but has only just now started to materialize. Ajiro nodded and went to sheath the sword, only for it to vanish. The power's called sword birth. It's nothing overtly fancy like the boosted gear, but in the right hands, it's nothing to be sniffed at. I'm Yudo Kiba in life, my life, I was a double gear wielder. And sword birth was one of my gears, the other was blade blacksmith. What's the difference? I mean, they're both the same technique. Kiba grinned and summoned his devil wings, devils, angels, fallen angels, gods, and various other mythos. Sword birth is the demon version of blade blacksmith, the holy one. Ajiro swayed slightly. Okay, mythology and religion existed then, you all died out, but why come back now? Why me? Unsure. Potluck, and well, Drake. You'll know Drake when you see him. Wielder will be screaming boost, explosion, and transfer at the top of their lungs anyway. There's gonna be a shitstorm coming, and you're gonna be in the middle of it. Somewhere. How's the upgrade coming to Tamura? Tamura smirked from his purple and wide armor. Perfect, Sensei Kurogiri. See if you can find me more people with these abilities. If not, find some decent minions who could become powerful party members. Be warned, Drake has awakened. We will have to fight him soon. I know, Albion. I know. We must train, we must grind our stars so we can take out the big bosses in one go. Training ground Epsilon, power. Screamed a muscled second year as he shattered a set of bricks with a punch. As he trained, he was being watched by 5 people, like most only 2 of the particular pupils could see 5. Others only saw 2. Mirio's really going for broke this time. His timing's getting even better. The blue-eyed teen said. On her left was a beautiful, buxom red-headed girl. You've improved yourself. She replied. But not as well as Mirio, Riaz-chan. Riaz giggled. Then again, not many people could say that they've got the second most powerful Super Supreme Devil as their personal trainer. The giant devil snorted. Mirio may have me as a trainer and voice in their head, my wonderful cousin. The lovely Najire-chan has the greatest teleporter to complement her multi-purpose wave motion quirk. Riaz and Najire giggled at that. Talking to your invisible friends again? Asked Amajiki Tamaki in a tone that suggested that he already knew the answer. You know it, Tamaki-kun. Najire responded with a grin on her face. The god Mirio, Heido Najire, and Amajiki Tamaki were collectively described as the Big Three, a trio of students who had worked their quirks up to a level that they could be considered on par with a pro hero, and from a casual glance, their quirks were not all that impressive. The god Mirio, his quirk permeation, made him able to slide through solid matter. It was thought to be unmasterable, but at age 17, he had mastered it to the point of at will he could fall into the ground, solidify, and using physics, allow him to literally fly around the battlefield. Heido Najire, her quirk wave motion, allowed her to convert vitality or stamina into blast waves. In essence, the discharge of the blast waves allowed her to levitate or to topple large amounts of people, especially if they lack speed. The last member, Amajiki Tamaki, his quirk manifest, in essence the living embodiment of you are what you eat. Mirio, you are improving dramatically. Now, 1500 push-ups. Saraerg barked. Mirio and Saraerg, in life, had been a devil that had been incapable of using his family clan's destruction technique, but able to use his mother's lion tamer power. As a result of that, Saraerg had conditioned himself to an extreme degree, to the point of being called the Great King of Destruction by Guan Yu, a legendary former general of the Kingdom of Shu. Surzich's Lucifer, formerly Gremory, and Issei Hayadu called Saraerg similar epithets, with Surzich's calling him the Super Lion-Fisted Devil and anointed him the unofficial Devil Vanguard with his peerage of scorned devils and honor. He had made a name in raiding games. Issei's moniker of him was Destruction Incarnate. It was recorded in one of Issei and Sang's fights. Issei is tribute to saying, you don't need my wife's skill with the power of destruction, you are destruction. You are a destruction manifest, as the Red Dragon Emperor proved. It was the only fight Issei remembered only just losing. Everyone had been willing to call it a tie, but on Issei's insistence it had been recorded by the Devil King Leviathan at the time that Issei had lost consciousness and hit the floor a thousandth of a second before Saraerg, thus declaring Saraerg the winner. Saraerg chuckled as he watched his protege begin his own cooldown routine. Seems the emperors are awakening Rias, we need to prepare these three for what is about to come. Entrance exam, it was time. 10 months of hard work, not including sprains, strains, rips, tears, and a few broken limbs. Who knew that combining All for One and Drag would result in All for One? Domination, a shroud that appeared in a hue of reds and greens. Separately, Izuku was able to now withstand 14 boosts at regular intervals and could overclock somewhere near 15 to 16 times. His all-for-one training had him at 10% of full AFO, and at 75% of that original 10%, that 75% involved circulating AFO around his limbs, particularly into his feet and knees, and using it safely. Combined, Izuku predicted he was about 50% of an overall 20 to 25%, and that was with drag, transferring the excess to fuel their combination technique liberation step. Izuku saw present Mick, and after a stripping down from a pompous stick from somewhere in the front row which had Izuku set to boiling point. Through the 10-month training, Izuku had finally broken down and, as he trained, he started to tackle the repressed and concealed wreckage that was his mental and emotional health. The results were still coming through, with Drag and Toshinori being willing to listen. Izuku had slowly developed a spine of steel, but of crude steel. A few people wouldn't break it, but certain people would. Well, it was better than being a spineless coward, as Kachin would have put it. Speaking of Kachin, Toshinori had suggested avoiding him as much as possible. He next saw his former childhood friend near the buses towards the training ground when he felt someone tapping his shoulder. Excuse me. Excuse me. Yes. You were the mumbling kid from earlier, do you realize? When Izuku turned, the boy wasn't much taller than him. Possibly about 3 inches, Izuku still had to look up, but not nearly as much as nervous tick. Izuku replied, cutting his harasser off who appeared to be in near full flow. I don't know you. I'd appreciate it if you didn't harass someone on their pre-examination nerves just because they upset your delicate sensitivities. You don't even know me. Deku? Izuku turned, it was the girl from before when he had nearly face planted on the ground. You're Araka, right? Is your name really Deku? Said the boy he was in a conversation with. No, just a much annoying nickname given to me by a childhood friend, you could say. Anyway, good luck. Izuku said, and they enjoyed the trip in blissful silence. They were herded into the middle of a 2-scale slightly destroyed city. You have 10 minutes to immobilize, as many villains. Mick began. Izuku had positioned himself to the side in the middle of the group. Welsh Dragon, 8 steps of liberation. Step 1. The miniature gauntlet appeared, boost, boost. Second, liberation. Rumble the gauntlet as the gear fully materialized, then Drake began to mentally call boost in his head. Third and fourth, liberation. An identical red gauntlet appeared on his left arm. People began to look as if they could feel the pressure building when the buildings shook as robots headed towards them. Villains aren't going to wait. Go. 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 The exam has begun. YEAHH. Welsh Dragon. Liberation levels 4 through 8. Boost. Explosion. Shouted Izuku and Drag as Izuku's trousers and trainers became armored and dragon-like. With a leap, Izuku was in front of one. Take the legs, take the head. Minimize collateral. Izuku thought dragon straight. Izuku rushed the robot, taking the left leg, then the right leg, and finished with a boot to the head. Drag chuckled, 8-step liberation was an incredibly useful technique. He was definitely going to implement this on his next wielder. He settled in to count his foes and boost. Izuku then found a set of 4 worth 11 points. However, there was a girl using acid and 2 others. One appeared to have tape being secreted from his body, and Uraraka. Domination. The rustic green cowl erupted into existence transfer. Dre grumbled. Izuku vanishes. The power you're giving off is going to destroy your body unless you wish to upgrade. What do you mean? Their body parts will become made from my flesh. It'll not feel any different. I would suggest both legs and your right arm. Do it. Domination bullet. Izuku launched himself through the air, rotating into a ball and spinning out legs first. There were sensors throughout the city, giving heart rates, oxygen levels, and speed capabilities, all of which were slowly compounding a rough outline of potential. Observation room. Midoriya, he's interesting. Nezu, the tanuki-looking principal, said. I'm not understand his quirk, he's just put down a group of letters, but nothing else. Is it a transformation? Mutation? Emitting? Asked Bluetking. Aizawa snorted as he watched its effusion quirk. Those letters are a name, the name is Drag. It's a powerful quirk, it boosts and transfers power. An enhancing and transfer quirk, separately rather common, but together. What's the catch? Aizawa grinned beneath his scarf. We'll have to see. Midnight and Mick, who had remained quiet throughout the exchange, examined Midoriya and considered their friend's earlier statement about his quirk. Aizawa, is Midoriya's thing? Asked Mick. It is. Principal Nezu, I want a Jiro Mashirao and Midoriya Izuku in my class, provided they pass my test. Battleground. 2 0-pointers had arrived, and unfortunately for Uraraka, she had a twisted ankle and was trapped. Fortunately for her, Izuku and Mashirao were closing in on them. That's the Red Dragon Emperor. Kiba said, as he calmly floated next to the tailed hero applicant. Midoriya. My mate is the unstoppable force of nature. Yup. He's the sword birth wielder Ijiro. My mate and sparring partner. Yup. I'd recognize that blonde knight Kiba anywhere. Speaking of, you're going to need to learn more about chess to use some of my more interesting aspects. Anyway, let's overclock this. Boost. 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 Domination explosion stomp. Shouted Izuku as he channeled both One for All and the stored power of Drag along his left leg and going into a kick that if used on a human was designed to either crack skulls or shatter collarbones. Sword birth. Sort of ending. Called Ijiro as he jumped for the 0-pointer Izuku hadn't gone for. A hand and a half obsidian black blade bit into the 0-pointer and Ijiro used every ounce of his being to drive and manipulate the blade into the robot and effectively begin to part the reinforced metal plates, shred the electronics and sensors. Izuku on the other hand slammed his leg into the robot's head area. The head dented, buckled and warped before the facial part exploded with a gout of flame. Absorption. The flame was absorbed into the gauntlet. Thankfully the of his leg would take time to happen. Izuku somewhat managed to break his fall, and at the cost of mangling his other arm, he managed to pull Uraraka out of harm's way. The armor dissolved and Izuku was met by a blinding wall of pain. Midoriya, we're going to need to chat. Were the last words Izuku heard as he passed out as the other students rushed onto the scene. Ijiro, he shook his head and smirked. You know Deku. Ijiro chuckled at the fact that his name is Midoriya Izuku, and yes I do. You are. Uraraka Chako. Soon enough the pair were brought out of their uncomfortable conversation by an elderly lady and the bell rang. Thanks for watching my video, see you next time, till then sayonara.